Okay. Welcome everybody to Oh Brother Part 2, what to do with the 024, 028, and 588 fields for video cassettes and kits. Eric McKinney is going to be our presenter. I will be monitoring the chat, and he is willing to answer questions during the presentation. So if you have a burning question during his presentation, I will let him know that he's got a question to answer. Otherwise, he'll also answer the questions at the end of his presentation. So Take it away, and I'm going to stop my video.
All right.
And mute myself.
All right. Thank you, Pam. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Eric McKinney, and as Pam said, we are having a little construction in the office today. So sorry if you hear some banging in the background. I will try to talk louder than that. I'm a cataloger here at the Cataloging Maintenance Center at the Illinois Heartland Library System. And you may remember me from such presentations as, oh brother, what to do with the 024, 028, and 588 fields for CDs and DVDs, as well as, well, you see, Timmy. Well, today I'm back for Oh Brother Part 2, what to do with the 024, 028, and 588 fields for video cassettes and kits. But first, a little bit about me. I've been with the CMC for just over a year now. I arrived here after cataloging at an academic library for 13 years, Millikan University in Decatur, go Big Blue. I appreciate the breadth of materials that we get to catalog here at the CMC. I've done everything from local history to genealogy to Braille and blueprints, even Realia. My favorite thing I think was a pickleball set that I got to catalog for a library. That was pretty fun. In my spare time, I enjoy hanging out with my wife, who's a high school librarian, so come by this work honestly, and our menagerie, which is pictured up here. We currently have 2 large dogs, that's Oberon and Tyrion. Oberon's on the bottom. 3 long-haired cats, Sagan, Griffin, and Drizzt from bottom to top. 3 chickens, Alice, Flo, and Vera. If you recognize those names, I have an idea about how old you are. And a grumpy old Australian rainbow fish named Max. Unfortunately, Max doesn't really care to pose for pictures, so I have an artistic rendition of him here. And I only include this to poorly self-drawn illustration to make the pictures I took for the presentation look like they were taken by Annie Leibovitz. But that's about the extent of my artistic ability, unfortunately. Anyhow, in our spare time, my wife and I enjoy reading, gardening, canning the vegetables that we get out of the garden, making broth and canning that. We do gaming and watching our 3 chickens run around being goofy. If you've never seen 3 chickens eat yogurt from a pie tin, then you really are missing out. It's both hilarious and messy. So our agenda for today, let's take a dive into today's topics. We'll start with an overview of the 024, the 028, and 588 fields. After that, I'll drill down just a bit deeper and take a closer look at the indicators for each of those fields that pertain specifically to video cassettes or items that might be included in a kit. I'll be using OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards as my primary source for the information provided in today's presentation. My standard disclaimer, I'm not an expert on these fields. This presentation is a result of research and experience. All errors made are my own and nobody else's. So with that out of the way, let's take a look here at the 024, or the other standard identifier. OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards defines the other standard identifier as standard numbers or codes published on an item that cannot be accommodated in another field, such as the 020, the 022, the 027, etc. And a brief reminder, the 020 is just the International Standard Book Number, or ISBN. The 022 is the International Standard Serial Number, or ISSN. Or if you're doing a technical report, you have the 027 for Standard Technical Report Number. The 024 is a required field if applicable. So let's take a look at indicator 1 here. I've included a few pictures. The first indicator of the 024 field is the type of standard number or code you will be using. As you can see, we have 7 options here for use, but there is no 5 or 6 to choose from. Just 0 through 3 and 4, 7, and 8. Not all of them are going to apply to video cassettes, but 1 or more may apply to kits depending upon the type of items that are in the kit. And I've added images of indicators that might apply. The first one is the ISRC, or the International Standard Recording Code, and it's the globally recognized standard numbering system for audio and music video recordings. It functions as a universal identification number for each sound recording, and it's just a string of 12 alphanumeric characters broken into 4 elements separated by hyphens. The elements are, the first part is just the country code, which consists of 2 characters and comes from ISO 3166. or the codes for the representation of names and countries. The second part is the first owner of the recording. It consists of 3 characters. Next comes the year of the recording. It's only 2 characters, the last 2 digits of the years. So 13 would designate 2013. And number 4 is the recording code. The thing with ISRCs is you have to have one of these if you want to appear like in the Billboard charts or anything like that. So if you have music as a hobby, you can get yourself an ISRC and possibly crack the top 100. See, number 1 is the Universal Product Code. You're probably familiar with those. I don't have a picture, as we'll be looking at those here in a little bit. So after that is indicator 2 is the International Standard Music Number. This one's a bit easier to identify. It's normally on scores, and it's usually preceded by the ISMN, as you see there. So that kind of makes it an easier number to identify. It's not such a mysterious thing as some of these others can be. The EAN is the European Article Number or International Article Number, and that applies to serials or paperback books, which I guess could be part of a kit. I'm not sure I've ever seen an actual EAN on any of those. Indicator 4 is for Serial Item and Contribution Identifier, or the SICI, and that's going to apply to serials. 7 is unspecified, or I'm sorry, is the source specified in subfield 2. OCLC really does prefer use of indicators 0 through 4 before 7 if possible. We should be using those. Number 8 is the unspecified type of standard number, and it should be used only in cases where there is neither an appropriate specific first indicator nor a MARC standard identifier source code assigned to that standard identifier. A MARC standard identifier source code is a mouthful, but it also might be a term from a multitude of lists. A good source of different code and term lists can be found at our good friends at the Library of Congress at www.loc.gov/standards/source list. And I do have that listed here as well as in the resources slide at the end. So that'll be available when the presentation's done. But this is just a brief look at a portion of the Library of Congress page that has the source codes. As you can see here, there's quite a few, and this, as I said, was just a portion of the page so there are far too many to cover individually here, but the URL is listed here if you want to take a look at them all. And if you use a code from one of the sources listed, it should be recorded in a 024 subfield 2 using a first indicator of 7. So again, you can find that in our resources later. The 024, indicator 2. The second indicator is also called the difference indicator. Basically, it defines the OCLC, defines the difference as the difference between a scan number or code and the same number or code in iReadable form. You leave it blank, there's no information provided. 0, there's no difference between the two, or 1, you do see a difference between the two. You can record that here. Our subfields for the 024 are the subfield A is the standard number or code, which is just what it says. Subfield C is terms of availability. The OCLC doesn't really prefer this to be used much anymore. If you do use it, then do not use it to record price information anywhere. And if you are going to use it, you can use subfield C to, if you're cataloging scores, that is, to indicate whether the presence of rental material would be available to go with that score. Subfield D, if you see a smaller barcode with additional numbers just to the right of the ISBN or UPC, subfield D is where you would record that information. Subfield Q is a brief statement concerning the item associated with a number recorded in subfield A or Z. And subfield Z is a canceled or invalid standard code. You might have seen this with ISBNs in the 020 field or the OCLC number at the 035 field if they've had previous numbers assigned to an item. That brings us to our recap of the 028, which is the publisher or distributor number. OCLC's BFAS defines the publisher or distributor number as formatted number used for musical sound recordings, non-musical sound recordings, sound recordings, notated music, other music-related materials, and video recordings. Publisher and distributors numbers that are given in an unformatted format are recorded in a 500 or 500 general notes field. At the indicator 1 for our 028 first, there are 7 options here for the first indicator. Most deal with music, but there is one specifically for video recording or publisher number. And more than one of these might apply to some stuff in a kit. So let's take a look at these individually. 0 is a number assigned by the publisher to identify the issue or serial designation of a sound recording. It can be a full recording, just one side of a recording, or just a certain song on the recording. And many times this number can also be found on the spine of the CD. 1 is the matrix number, which disappointingly has nothing to do at all with Keanu Reeves. The matrix number is also used for sound recordings. And OCLC tells us it is the number of the master recording from which a specific recording was.
Eric, I can't hear you anymore. Did you mute yourself?
The spine, I'm sorry. I don't think so. Mary, can you hear me now? I'm sorry, Al. I seem to have lost audio. All right, it looks like my audio is back. I apologize for that. I'm not quite sure where it went out at, but I was looking at indicator 5, the other publisher number.
I think you were on 2.
2, okay, we can skip back there, no problem at all. We can go right back to number 3, which is the other publisher number, and it can also be used for scores. If there's another music publisher number, it can usually be found on the title page, on the cover, and on the first page of the score. Number 4 is the video recording publisher number, which might be located on the item itself, usually the label or the packaging, and can often be found on the spine as well. Number 5 is the other publisher number, and you can use this one if none of the others really fit for your item. You can use 5. 6 is a distributor number that is assigned by the distributor. It's not always quite clear whether what you're looking at is a publisher number or distributor number. OCLC says when in doubt, we should record that as the publisher number. And I'm not sure I've ever actually seen a distributor number out there in the wild. But if you have, I'd like to hear about that. All right, so that brings us to indicator 2. And this is just the note or access point controller, whether or not you want to generate one. You've probably seen this in other fields. 0 does not generate a note or an access point. 1 generates a note and the access point is required. This is preferred by many catalogers as it will both display the number and make it searchable, which is very helpful. 2 is no access point, generates the note, but no access point. It's more common, but doesn't really allow for searching by the number. So we kind of prefer 1. 3 does not generate a note, but the access point is required. All right, the subfields, there are only 3 of them here for the 028. The A is the publisher or distributor number, and that's the formatted number used for musical sound recordings, non-musical sound recordings, notated music, other music-related materials, and video recordings. That is assigned by the publisher or distributor. Enter the number exactly as it appears on the item. Enter spaces, punctuation, prefixes, and suffixes. Subfield B is the source of the publisher or distributor number. And Q is again any qualifying information which can contain qualifiers associated with the number, such as which cart the number pertains to or where the number is found on the item. Which brings us to the source of description note. Information recorded here is used for tracking and controlling the metadata of a record. The description may be general or specific. The 588 is used to record information used to describe the item that might not have come directly from the item itself. The 588 is also a required field. If the information is on the item, it should be recorded. It can be used on kits to identify each piece used as a basis for identification of the resource. If the resource is online, be sure to include the date the resource was viewed. And our indicators for the 588. The first indicator is the display constant controller. If not providing information, you leave the first indicator blank. 0 is the source of description. Notes like title from container used to go in the 500, but now should go in a 588 coded 0 for the first indicator. So it'll be 588, 0, indicator 2 blank, and then title from cover, title from container, whatever you have. 1 is the latest issue consulted. If you're cataloging a serial, you can use 1 to note the latest issue that you looked at to get the description of the item. Indicator 2. The second indicator is undefined. It should always be as blank as this slide. 588 is the source of description note subfields. A is the source of description note. Subfield 5, here you can record associated institutions that are associated with the item. I sometimes see this as a commitment to retain note when an institution commits to not withdrawing an item they have. 6 is data linkage. And that's just data that links fields when non-Latin script is entered. You don't really have to worry about this because it's system supplied and it does not appear in OCLC online displays, and you're instructed to not manually add a subfield 6 to your records in the 588. Subfield 8 is the field link and sequence number. And that just identifies linked fields and may also propose a sequence for the linked fields. It may be repeated to link a field to more than one other group of fields. The cataloger is responsible for creating and maintaining links in subfield 8, and the system will not create or maintain those. So if that is used, you'll have to do the upkeep on that one yourself. All right, so that brings us to a little more specificity with the 024 for video cassettes. Now that we've reviewed the fields, we can take a closer look at how to apply them. We will start with the 024. Our volunteer video cassette today is Australia, Secrets of the Land Down Under, from the awesome Macon Junior Senior High School Learning Resource Center. With weather turning colder here, it's nice to think of warm weather and koala bears. That and I packed away my personal VHS tapes a long while ago, and this is one of the few that my wife had left in her library's collection there at the Macon Junior Senior High School Learning Resource Center. But we can get started by examining the cassette and the title screen for any numbers that we can recognize as one of the first indicator options for the 024 field. On the back of the case, we see an ISBN, but we can ignore that for our purposes today. We also see a UPC below the barcode, so we can record that in a 024 using 1 in the first indicator. Because the video is not a music video or serial or paperback, we do not need indicators 2, 3, or 4. And indicators 7 or 8 also do not apply. So our 024 is going to look like in the N024, 1 in first indicator, second indicator blank, subfield A, and then the UPC number of 2804840201. And the 028 for video cassettes. Unfortunately, our volunteer videotape, I could not get to play in any of the 3 VCRs that I tried it in, which I thought was, I was just happy I was able to find 3 working VCRs in 2022. However, Mr. Rogers trained me well to pretend, so I'm just going to have to do that here. Let's say that my pretend title screen contains the following sequence. Down here, 005, 09, E891A57. And let's see here. All right. So our 028 for this one is going to be 4. I went with 4 because it is a video recording publisher number is what I'm going to go ahead and call it here in our pretend record here. And I have a subfield B of video visits library, as that was the publisher here. So our final 028 in this case looks like 028 subfield or indicator 4, then indicator 1. I'm sorry, 1 in indicator 2, subfield A 00509 E891A57, and then our subfield B with the publisher of Video Visits Library. All right, the 588 for video cassettes might differ from depending on where the information came from. The label on the cassette is a preferred source, but if there is none, taking the title from another source is fine as long as we noted in the 588. Some examples might include, as you see here, title from insert or title from container, but essentially we just want to kind of explain where did we find that at. All right, now let's move on to kits. We can look at the 024 for kits, but It's actually going to depend on what sort of items are in the kit. Once we have ascertained that, we can then determine which items will likely need a 024 and or a 028 field. A 588 will almost always be included in a record for kits. For our purposes today, I've invented a fictional kit. My Magical Music of Star Wars kit contains one VH copy of Star Wars, one CD copy of the original soundtrack, and one copy of the Star Wars for Beginning Piano solo music score. With this awesome kit, you can watch the movie while listening to the soundtrack and playing along on your piano. The piano is not included. Only a Nerf herder wouldn't want to do that. So first, let's take a look at the 024 for the movie and see what we can apply to that from our list of options. The container is a bit beat up, as you can say, so I couldn't make out an ISBN, but that's okay because we're not covering those today. I did find the UPC on it, so I can record that in the 02 field. I'm sorry, the 024 field. On the cassette itself, we can see CAT NO 1130. It's not quite clear what that number is, but it appears to me to be a publisher's number. So I'll record that in the 028 rather than here in the 024. There was no additional information on the title screen, so my 024 for the movie would look like 024 indicator 1, blank indicator 2. Subfield A would have the number 086-162-113-031. And our 028 for the movie. Now on the label of the cassette, I found the phrase, as I said earlier, cat.no.1130. We could use indicator 4, but in my opinion, it's not entirely clear that the number is the publisher's number. It looks like it just might be, the phrasing of it seems to indicate it's just the number for the movie in the publisher's catalog, so I'm not quite sure that's the same thing. So using cataloger's judgment, yay.
Eric, I still can't hear you.
It's unmuted. Mary, can you hear me? Yep, Mary can hear me now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I apologize, everyone. I'm not sure what's going. Yeah, there you go. I just need Pam's presence to come in and make it work for me again. I apologize. I have no idea why my audio keeps cutting out. So let's get on through this before I lose it again, shall we? We're looking at the CD. The cover was a bust, but we do have a number on the top right of the back, which is 2T541. Examining the disc, we find another number, 800-098-2. This number also appears on the spine of the container. I found some cool nostalgia-filled Star Wars pictures in the pamphlet, but no additional numbers or information that would help us. Per the indicator definitions, none of them seem appropriate for either number except for possibly 8. Remember, that was defined earlier as the type of standard number or code is unspecified. but use it only in cases where there is neither an appropriate specific first indicator nor a MARC standard identifier source code assigned. However, I think we can find a more specific code for our numbers in the 028 field. So for our CD, all right, let's look at the number on the CD 800-098-2. As mentioned earlier, the same number is listed on the spine of the CD. For indicator definitions, I think we can count this as the issue number. It's not a matrix or plate number, so that rules out 0 and 1. Numbers 4 through 6 aren't the best fit, but maybe we could make an argument about 3, which boils down to cataloger's judgment again. But I'm going to go with the issue number here. I can also note that Polygram Records was the publisher per the disk, so my 028 is going to look like 02801, subfield A, 800-098-2, subfield B, Polygram Records, comma, Inc., period. And that just leaves us with that mysterious number on the back cover, the 2T-541. It's not really clear what that number is intended to be or what that is exactly. So I think indicator 5 might be the best option here to the other publisher number. So 02851, subfield A of 2T-541, and again, Polygram Records, Inc., and our subfield B. 024 for our score. Looking over our score for information, the front cover has no numbers that we might include. The back cover contains an ISBN at the bottom right. We can ignore that. The bottom left has some good information that we can record, however. There's a UPC number. And when we write that out, it should look as 024, indicator 1, subfield or indicator 2 is blank. And subfield A should read 88408-886-1827. There is also HL00110283, but we can deal with that in the 028. Looking at the title page, only the ISBN has been listed on it, so nothing we can use from there. As noted in the previous slide, we found another number on the back of the score, HL00110283. We need to determine what kind of number it is. Looking over the definitions of our indicators, the issue and matrix numbers apply to sound recordings, so we can rule those out. Indicator 2 plate number might be a possibility, but OCLC says the plate number will appear at the bottom of each page of a score and possibly on the title page. That is not the case with our score. It's not a video recording, so that eliminates 4, and how lettered is the publisher, not the distributor, so we won't use 6. At first glance, 5 also might be a possibility, but OCLC says it should be used, quote unquote, for publisher numbers that appear on music-related materials that are not themselves notated music. So that leaves us with 3, the other music publisher number. And remember, that was defined as the number is other than a musical or non-musical sound recording issue or matrix number or a notated music plate number. This description seems to fit our item best. Because we know how Leonard is the publisher, we can also add subfield B. Our final 028 for the score will look like 028, first indicator of 2, second indicator of 1, subfield A with our number, and subfield B with the publisher information, Hal Leonard. The 588 for the kit. Sometimes when we receive a kit, it has not already been named by the library. So in those cases, it's necessary for the cataloger to provide a good descriptive name. Because I provided the name Magical Music of Star Wars kit, which is descriptive, though I'm not sure good, my 588 would look like 588, indicator 1 of 0, indicator 2 of blank, and then our subfield A of title provided by cataloger. And there should be a full stop at the end of the 588. So this is a quick look at all the final fields of our kit. 024s and 028s for the video recording for our score and for our VHS tape. It all look like that. But I also wanted to show examples of a couple of other kits that we've come across here. This kit was assembled, it's the Gumboot Kids kit, and it was assembled by the Marshall Public Library and sent to us for cataloging. The record was made by CMC cataloger Mary Cornell. As Mary noted, the kit consists of 8 paperback books, 2 plush figures, 1 DVD, 1 CD, 1 laminated activity booklet with 2 dry erase markers, and 1 binder containing activities and songs. The items come in a backpack. You can see on the top right, Mary included a 024 and a 028 for the AV material. The 024 has an indicator of 1, making it a UPC. The 028 for the CD has a first indicator of 0, meaning it is an issue number provided by the publisher. A SIC indicator of 3 denotes no note is required, but an access point is. Subfield B has been added to list the publisher. On the bottom right, we can see the 588 that Mary assigned. It was named by the library, so she assigned it as title from tag attached to the backpack. And one last example here. I really like this one for a couple of reasons. It has lots of 024s and well, mostly 028s in this one because they're all movies. But this was a binge box from the Rantoul Public Library for the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And I like this because it illustrates one OCLC used to have all the numbers for the 028 just put in a single 028 field. And if you can imagine how messy that would be with this particular record. So that's kind of one reason I think they went to recording all these in separate fields. It just looks a lot better. And so, yeah, and I also like it's a good example of the qualifying information or the subfield Q. She lists exactly where she gets all the information for each and every disc on there. So I think this is an excellent record to show for kits. And down there, she did supply the title for it. She did her 588. Katie put title supplied by cataloger. All right, so my summary, now that we've finally made it, as we have seen, there are many options for recording information in the 024, 028, and 588 fields, including as much information as we can find in a record is helpful for both libraries and their patrons for identified items they are interested in. I'd like to say thank you for joining me today for Oh Brother Part 2. I hope everyone here has a great day and happy cataloging. Here are the resources I've used. Again, this is already posted in L2, so you can grab that if you need the resources. On the call today, we have Barb Scobie, CMC cataloger. Dr. Pam Thomas, Mary Cornell, and myself. And if you have any questions, I'm not going to do a Yoda impression, so don't worry about that. But if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. Thanks all.
Eric, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
I can, Pam.
Oh, yay. But if Eric can't hear me, that's bad because then he won't be able to hear me asking him questions. Hang on, let me go into his cubicle and see what's going on. Hang on.
Okay.
I can't hear you now.
Okay. Let me look at that.
Yeah, click on the little drop down.
I quit. Yeah, I thought so too.
You can just stop sharing.
Fine.
Okay, what do you got?
Same as system.
No, but you've got, those are different. Yeah.
That's just the speaker for.
Okay, hang on, let me go back. Could you hear the other people talking?
No.
Eric, can you hear me now? No, Eric wasn't able to hear any of us. Okay. I'm assuming he still can't hear me. Hang on.
Oh, no.
Okay. Just talk and see if anybody ask if they can hear you.
Hi, can anybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yay! Wow.
Okay, hang on.
I only had to take off my headset. All right, I am so sorry about the audio issues today. All right.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Oh my God. Okay. Eric's just trying to help me get my steps in. I think that's what's going on here. Okay. Give me a hot second and I will change the settings so you guys can unmute yourself if you want to ask questions. Eric, we've just, I think, had one question which Mary already answered, unless if I missed some. Let me go back up.
Barb asked a question too while you were
okay,
going
hang
back
on.
and forth.
All right, hang on, let me go back. Give me a second. So Joy had asked, why didn't you add the subfield Q qualifying information when you were talking about the kit, which is when I realized you couldn't hear me. And then Mary just replied that it's not required per OCLC bib formats and standards, but you can definitely add that depending on your library if you feel it would make the item more accessible. So hang on, let me scroll down. Barb asked, are we no longer putting the price of the item in the 024? No, Barb. Sorry. I will also let Eric answer that, but no.
Yeah, I've never put the price in the 024. So yeah, I would recommend.
It was 024 subfield C where we were allowed to put it, but now
right.
No more.
Yeah.
A good question. Okay, hang on, let me scroll back down. Okay, we've got questions about headphones. Okay, and then Mary stuck the link into the 024. Thanks, Mary. And yeah, if you want to ask a question, you can if you've got a microphone, or if you're in a place where you can, you now are allowed to unmute yourself. If you didn't see my earlier chat, the notes or the slides without the notes are in L2 right now, and then after the presentation, the notes with the slides will be in L2. I'll probably be sending out the link to the recording early next week. We have to send it to our IT guy who does magical things, and then puts it up on YouTube for us. Does anybody else have any other questions? And I'm sorry, I always forget to introduce myself. I'm Pam, sorry. I feel like I've been doing this forever and you guys should all know me, but that's probably not true. Sorry, out of breath now. Doing my laps. Okay. Nobody has any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
Could you explain there was the one slide where you're talking about the difference versus the no difference again. Can you go over that again? Because I want to make sure I understand that.
Yes, and that was for indicator 2. And that was just the difference between a scanned number or a code and the same number in code or iReadable form. To be honest, I've never had any experience with this one.
Because I had something like that the other day where, like, when I would scan it, it would come up with a different number than just what was listed on the item.
So then I would put the 1 then.
Yeah,
you would put the 1.
Like
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense then. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's weird.
Wow, that's the first I've ever heard of that one.
Yeah,
yeah, like that's the only time that's ever happened to me. It was like, I think it was like last week. So
timely.
Okay, that's interesting.
Nice, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, very timely.
Yes, definitely.
Anna, I've had a few in the past at other places where what you scanned is not what shows up on the screen. And I think it seems to me like it was one particular publisher that had a problem with that, but I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh,
so what would you guys do? Like, I've noticed there's a couple of ones that I've come across in OCLC now that I'm thinking about it, where I feel like I've come across ones where I've scanned in like the 024 or something and it has that 1 for the difference, and I haven't totally been, and I've just left it. But then now that I'm thinking, I'm like, what if they're saying that it has a difference, but then when you scan it, it doesn't. Like, would you leave that indicator there? Because maybe, like, is that like a scanner thing? Maybe for other people's scanners it would do that, or have they fixed it? Or like, what do you think that means?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to suggest too, that maybe try scanning it, using somebody else's scanner just to make sure. Because sometimes, scanners can be programmed or they go a little wonky on you too.
Okay.
But if it was already there in the record, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like
I'd probably just leave it.
Just leave it. Okay.
Sorry, Eric. You can answer too.
No, you're fine. No. I'm in agreement.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you.
I don't really like changing things in records if they're already there, especially if I have any uncertainty about anything,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because you don't know why the other cataloger chose to do that.
Right.
I also don't want to act like I know more than other people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, that's why I've always left it, because I was like, I assume
Right.
they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave that there. But then I was like, well, maybe I'm supposed to change it. So, okay. No, that makes sense though.
I mean, unless if you felt something was really wrong, but
yeah.
Otherwise, no, I would just leave it. But that's just how I am. Okay, so Jean says, so in the case where there is a difference between the scan number and the visual, would you have two 024s?
Yes, I believe you'd want to record those in two different 024s rather than the same.
Yeah, one with a 0 and one with a 1, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Good question, Jean, though. And I know some of you might be like, why are you talking about videocassettes? But we still do get those to catalog. And I know some libraries do still have videocassette collections. So any other questions? No. Let me go look. So I've forgotten what we're doing in January. So yeah, in January, it'll be January 12th. We've got Looking to the Future, how to learn about linked data and BibFrame. Unfortunately, we had a staff change, so I'm doing that one. Sorry, you're gonna have to listen to me in January and February. But everything is in L2, so feel free to register for that if you haven't already, if you're interested. Otherwise, just want to say thank all of you for attending. Sorry, we were having some audio
Thank you for bearing with me.
I know. It's those new headsets. I feel like every time somebody's used one, that's just not gone smoothly. So we'll have to have a talk. Okay. Jean says, thank you. Nice presentation. All right.
Thank you, Jean.
Gonna stop the recording.